Good Shabbos. This week we read a double portion Vayakol Pekudei, which is very similar to the portions we read a few weeks ago to Truma and Tetzaveh. The Truma and Tetzaveh were told how to construct the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and how to make the clothes of the Kohanim, of the priests, and the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And this week we're told that they actually were constructed and how they were done. When we look carefully at the description of the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, in particular the high priest, we could see a parallel between those special 4 pieces of clothing that he wore that no one else wore, and the construction of the Aron, of the Ark. The 4 pieces of clothing of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest, are the following. One is an ephod, which is an apron, multicolored apron, which is made of gold strands and other material. A me'il, which is a tunic, which is completely made out of blue wool. There's a choshen, a breastplate, which hangs from the ephod, hangs from the apron, which has on it 12 precious stones. On each one of those stones is the name of one of the tribes of the Israelite people. And you also then have the tzitz, which is a plate which is worn on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, which is made of pure gold, and there it says Kodesh Lashem, holy to God. Going back to the breastplate was somewhat folded, and within there we put the Urim V'Tumim. What the Urim V'Tumim is not clear. Some say it's just the name of God written on a piece of parchment. Others say that the Urim V'Tumim is just really a method of how prophecy was given to the Jewish people by the lighting up of the letters of the tribes on the choshen, on the breastplate. Whatever it is, the Urim V'Tumim seems to be something special and very holy. The words themselves are probably related to Urim, to Ar, to light, and Tumim, to Tamim, to pure, to unblemished. So it's pure light, which starts to sound a little bit like something divine. The ark is made up of wood covered by gold. And on top of that is a kapores, which is a gold cover. And out of that gold cover come 2 kruvim, 2 cherubs. And inside, of course, of the ark are the Shnei Luchos, the 2 tablets which Moshe brought down from Mount Sinai. So I'd like to draw a parallel between the two in the following way. The ark is made up of gold and wood. The ephod, the apron, is made up of gold strands and other materials. So I think there's a parallel between the two and a relationship between the two. It says that the choshen, the breastplate, was always on the ephod, it was hanging from the apron. And there's a very interesting verse. It says that the choshen should never leave the apron. And the apron, I should say, has 2 sort of straps that go over your shoulders, and then the rest goes across like a regular apron. The ark also had 2 badim, two poles, which I left out before, 2 poles, and the Torah says those poles should never leave the ark. What the reason is, we'll leave for another time, but there's a clear parallel between the 2 poles, which are used by the Jewish people to carry, or the Kohanim generally, the priests, to carry the tribe of Levi, to carry the ark. They're never to leave the ark. The breastplate, which has the 12 names of the tribes, are held on by these 2 straps, which I think are similar to the 2 poles, and they are never supposed to leave the ephod. The choshen and the ephod, the breastplate, and the apron are never to be separated. So there seems to be a parallel. These straps, which hold it down and are tied in a sense to the tribes, just like the poles are used to carry the ark by the Jewish people. Here also the Jewish people are attached to this choshen, this breastplate, which within it has something very holy and divine. Let's call it the name of God, which would clearly parallel the the tablets which were put in the ark. So, and another important feature is that the tunic that was worn by the Kohen Gadol, by the high priest, was made only of tcheles, of blue wool. And the top of the aron, of the ark, the kaporos, was made of pure gold. So again, it's one material and it's a special material. Obviously, gold is a very important and special material, and blue wool was also something which is very special, very expensive, and somewhat rare. Now the Kohen Gadol then wore on his forehead Kodesh Lashem, that he's holy to God. And if you think about the ark and the way it's understood in many different commentaries, is that the ark is the throne of God. The ark itself is the footstool. The keruvim, the cherubs, have their wings spread out, which is a place for, in a way, for God to sit. But of course, God does not have a body, and we're not supposed to have any image of God. But that's where the Shekhinah, the divine presence, rests in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the Holy of Holies where the ark is. So that's the throne room of God. But of course, God is not there in the physical sense, but his presence is felt. And the three pieces of clothing besides the tzitz, besides the plate that's worn on the Kohen Gadol's forehead, seem to be similar to that ark. You have the ephod, as I mentioned, made of different materials, holding and attached to the choshen, the breastplate, which has within it the equivalent of the tablet, something divine. And then, who's sitting on top of all these pieces of clothing? It's the head of the Kohen Gadol, the head of the high priest. On top of the ark is the Shekhinah, is the divine presence. And really, I think what we're saying here is very simple, that the Kohen Gadol represents divine human being. Man is created b'tselem Elokim, in the image of God. And the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is your ideal man. And he's the man who is there to represent the Jewish people before God. And he's wearing these clothes. He's a walking Aron Kodesh. He's a walking holy ark. And on top of that ark is the divine aspect of the human being. And therefore we put on his head something purely gold, but maybe more important is what's inscribed on it, is that he's Kodesh Lashem, he's holy to God. And we have to really understand that every human being, Aaron is only a symbol for all other human beings. He's there to be our representative. And every human being is really a walking ark. Every human being has a divine spark within him. And he's always carried with, since that divine aspect which is in his heart, in the breastplate, which is either the two tablets that came down from Sinai, or the name of God, or some form of prophecy where God speaks to human beings, and we can understand what God's intent is and what his will is. And that's what all of our lives are really supposed to be, are these walking divine beings which are in the image of God. And I believe that's what the construction of these clothes are made to parallel the ark, in order to emphasize this idea that although the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, is only entered once a year by the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and your average person cannot ever enter into the Holy of Holies, that's because it's special divine. But within us, we all have that. We all have that divine aspect within us. And we actually do have the ability to relate to that divine every day of our lives. So although the physical presence of God in the tabernacle is very special, we have to realize that special element we have with us all the time. And therefore we have to treat ourselves and act in a way which we show that we really are living. We are living divine beings, and we all have the Tselem Elokim. We're all created in the image of God, and we're all, as the Kabbalists say, a chelik elokah mimal. We're part of God from up above. Good Shabbos.